really. All right. Hit it, Doug. Oh, no, stop. I got to hit my button. There we go. Now you can.
Oh, Stuart and the OokTown Podcast. Stuart and the OokTown Podcast. Oh, and I screwed it up. Can I do it again? I'm going to do it again.
Of course.
Hey, you know who's in charge of this? Doug Brown's in charge of this. Hey, welcome to the OokTown Podcast with Stuart Yoshida. And now it's Stuart and the OokTown Podcast. You're right here, right now. Yay!
Yay! That's my co-host, Doug Brown, on his introductory song. This is Stuart Yoshida. I'm host of the OokTown Podcast, where we talk about all things ukulele. So welcome, patrons and listeners. Thanks so much for joining us today. We got some great guests on the show. We're going to talk about Ubase. It's all about that bass today. And before I do that, I want to give some shout outs. First of all, we're going to give a shout out to the CC Strummers, and one of our guests is going to talk about that more. So CC Strummers, any of you out there, thanks for joining us on the podcast. And I'd like Doug to talk about the Portland Ukulele Group with their rotating hosts. Uva is hosting, I think, and the lovely Lunch Ladies. Tell us about that, Doug.
Well, yes, so actually Uva did it last Wednesday. It's Portland Ukulele Wednesdays. It happens every single Wednesday. And yes, they're adding to their international flair with Uva being host last Wednesday. And then this Wednesday is Christy and Jen. And Christy is from Canada. So that's Jen is from
awesome.
Washington State. So always a super good time, and it's ladies' night tonight this week.
Ladies' night.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a super fun time.
Nice. Well, so good to ukulele is international, so that is a really awesome thing that they're doing. And I want to also give a shout out to Meredith Harper. She had me on her show, her podcast, Ukulele is the New Black. So take a listen for that episode.
I had no idea that you had crushed your sister's dreams of being a guitar player.
I did not do that intentionally.
Well,
I did not do that intentionally.
But it doesn't change the fact that you just took her and broke her like a little stick.
She and I never even. This is the weird part. Funny, strange. I never knew that story until my brother-in-law told it to me. I guess he was preaching about something and that story came up and I go, what? I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. All right. So you're going to have to listen to that podcast to understand what Doug and I are talking about.
I listened to it and it's very good.
Thank you. So thanks to Meredith. And I also wanted to give a big shout out to Dan Hatslestad, and I probably did not pronounce your last name well. I apologize, Dan, but mahalo for increasing your pledge on Patreon. So we love our patrons on Patreon. If you want to donate and become a patron of the show, go to patreon.com/OokTown, OOKTOWN. Thanks so much, Don. And now I'd like to bring on our Ubase guest. First guest is Michael Kohan, and he's a member of the CC Strummers. And I have to give a big shout out to Michael also because he's a big supporter of the show. And I appreciate your donations to us. Not only is he a member of the CC Strummers, but boy, he has a really wide variety, interesting background. He was a professional photographer, worked in props in the movies. Sounds like a fabulous, interesting background. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
And next we have another Ubase player, Stephen Cox. Stephen has his own bass channel on YouTube, Stephen Cox Bass on YouTube. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Looking forward to learning more about the Ubase. We've talked about the bass ukulele quite a number of times, and I got a wide variety of topics here. But before we go into that, Doug, what's happening with the Denver uke community?
Oh well, we're getting ready for our color strum, where it's going to be all about blue bayous and red wine, all of those songs, and anything by Pink or Pink Floyd for that matter. Yeah, we're going to have all of those represented.
So, any color in the name of the song or the band or the composer?
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I like it. Awesome. Well, let's jump. Oh, wait a minute. Did we forget to mention that we have a little bit of a kismet on the show here, because Michael is one of identical twins, and so is Doug. That is like wild.
Yes, indeed. Being a twin is the best. You guys should try it.
Yeah.
In my high school graduating class, there were 11 sets of twins, identical and fraternal.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was in the water there?
We were from all over the place, so who knows where it came from. I was born in Cincinnati, conceived in Germany. Other ones were from just other parts of the country. It's interesting.
That is. Wow. And what a coincidence that there are so many of them at the same school. Maybe they put out an ad or something and said, we'll admit you if you're an identical twin.
In our class, the winter-summer combined class, we had like 857 people. So pretty big cross-section. Los Angeles.
Maybe Los Angeles. Maybe that was it, just sheer numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, as we jump into the Ubase discussion here, one of the first ones I wanted to bring up was something that a bass player friend of mine brought up, which I thought was interesting, and maybe he's being a bit of a snob. I don't know. He said, what he tells people, he says, I don't understand. Why would you want to play a Ubase? Why not just play the real thing, quote unquote, a full-size bass? And I thought that we'd start off with that. What's the draw? Why have a Ubase? And maybe we'll start off with Steven, because I can see you have a big upright in the back. So obviously you know what a full-size bass is about.
Right. So I play as many varieties of bass as I can. I started on electric bass, then I got into upright bass, then found the Ubase, which is a good kind of like in between. So there are a lot of reasons to play the Ubase over one of these other ones. One is just the physicality of an instrument. Not everybody can really approach the upright, because a lot of times people have so first of all, people that have like wrist injuries that used to play upright. I have a bunch of students that are still able to play what they really love to play because of that. So so the Ubase has those polyurethane strings usually. You can get metal strings for them, which I have some, but that's one of the big reasons that a lot of people get into it. For the average person, instead of somebody that's just injured, I think they have a unique sound. It's not exactly like an upright bass. It's kind of its own thing.
We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Can I just skip back to the wrist injury? Because that's really interesting. Yeah. So what is it about the wrist that makes a Ubase easier to play, or a better instrument, for that injury?
Well, basically with the upright bass, a lot of people have poor technique, and like I injured myself probably before having the proper technique on upright, for instance, but I can still play electric and I can still play upright just fine. But one of the things I was doing was I was squeezing with the hand, right? And you're really supposed to pull. You probably know this for every string instrument. You really pull with your arm. You use the bigger muscles, not the small muscles, to do that. So the idea is
that's actually interesting.
Yeah, wow. but it takes like having your arm pretty straight and being able to pull the strings into the fingerboard. Whereas on the Ubase, if you're playing with not the best technique or something, and you don't know that, and you're squeezing a little bit, you barely have to push down at all to get a note to sound and not buzz. and you barely have to pluck really with the other hand to get a good tone. It actually sounds better to pluck lighter. So it's just the ease of playing really allows people that have carpal tunnel and other things like that to still play the music they love.
Oh, wow.
So that's
I did not know that.
Yeah. I didn't realize that until I'd been playing for a long time and kept getting comments about it and kept hearing people talk about it. But it allows people that had a career in bass and can't do it anymore, or had a fun time playing upright that can't do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard that story a number of times.
Wow.
They've had some kind of issue, and that coming down to the Ubase size has really helped them.
Well, I want to continue on this, and I do want to let Michael jump in too. So what are your thoughts?
Well, interesting. I never played bass until I started playing bass uke. I played guitar for almost 50 years, basically rhythm guitar. Mm-hmm. And I was told often that I should be playing bass because I have good feel, good timing and such. But I never wanted to be encumbered by these big electric Fender bass type stuff. Forget about stand-up. I wouldn't even consider it. And I started playing ukulele in 2013. And about a year later in the CC Strummers, Callie, the leader of our group, asked if anybody would like to take up the bass to fill in our sound. We played together with about 35 to 50 people at one time. And I volunteered. Well, I got on the internet and I looked around. One of the other members of the group, Tom Kawada, he played tuba in school. So he was already oriented to the bass kind of world. So he took it on. And then as I looked around, I discovered the bass ukes and mini bass guitars. And I went and tested one and felt it out. I said, this I could handle. And I took it on. And then very specifically took lessons. When I first played guitar, I took a bunch of lessons in 1965 and then never took another lesson again. I just played along with whoever I was playing with. But with the bass, I figured I better learn a little bit about it. So I took lessons from Denny Croy at McCabe's Guitar Shop, and he really opened my eyes to how to do this.
Wow.
And once I started, if I ever picked up a regular size electric bass, whatever, Fender 32, 34 inch, I'd go, why does somebody want to do this? They have to go jumping up and down this long neck. And I actually have nerve damage in my neck and shoulders from many years ago of radiation treatments I had for cancer. And I have a certain limitation as well. I guess that's why as soon as I touched the Ubase size, I realized it was for me. And that's where I've been ever since. I only played 20.5 inch to 24.5 inch basses because of how comfortable they are for me.
Okay. So comfort is it sounds like a big thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And Doug, you're a bass, you have a Ubase also, right?
I do.
What are your
and actually it's got metal wound strings on it. And I've enjoyed it. Right on. I've enjoyed it, but at the end of the day, I am lazy enough that there are enough people in the Denver Ute community. Boy, let me tell you, having a bass player in a big group is so necessary. And
can I trump? Sorry, go ahead.
Luckily, we in the Denver community we have a couple of really good bass players.
Yeah.
So, but I'm still very much at the root note. It's like bo root.
Hey, no.
Can I trump you guys with this?
Ooh,
what's
look
that?
At that?
Yeah.
You win. That one's so cool.
It was custom
like
made for me. It's a carved arch top, hand carved.
Whoa, yeah, that's pretty wild.
From Bruce Wei Arts in Vietnam. He's been making ukuleles for me and a couple of basses, and this one This one
Wow.
came out great. Really came out great.
And
Really
are those
happy.
metal strings also?
You know, we can have a whole long string discussion.
Oh my goodness.
I started playing on poly strings,
Mm-hmm.
and I started on the Aquila, which came with the Gold Tone GT that I bought.
Yeah.
And right away, I could feel how unsmooth they were. And the idea, people say, oh, put powder on your fingers, put something on the, and I just thought, what? Wait a minute. That doesn't make a lot of sense. I've got to carry around something, put them on my fingers every time I want to play something. And I found that another company, Road Toad, who actually originated the bass uke and licensed it to Kala, how do you pronounce
Kala,
it?
yeah.
Kala. He uses, he had a set of strings called Road Toad Pahoe Hoe. And those are very smooth, and they're black.
So we're going to go into strings in here. I actually have it as a topic. So let's
wait on that then.
Go, yeah. And I'm going to give the Stephen the last word on the bass Ubase versus regular size bass.
Man, I have videos on this. I have done this topic. There's the obvious portability. That's the super obvious
portability.
One. And then the polyurethane strings, really they have a unique tone. And for me, I like tapping on them. And I was thinking about this the other day. It sounds kind of like, you know, the Blue Man Group playing PVC pipes.
Yeah, yeah.
It kind of has that kind of quality to it. But now they've made flat wound metal strings too, which we'll get into later, I guess. And those have been my kind of thing lately.
Okay.
Yeah. And apparently Michael's
too. If you want to, if any of you guys want to send us the links to all of this, you know, you can chat it out, and we'd love to. We'll put it in the show notes, so you can either email it.
I have.
Or you
so
already.
Far, I've got the Muso guitars. I've got Ukulele is the New Black link to Stuart's episode.
Yay.
I've got Steven's website. I've got McCabe's music. I've got Bruce Way, who I have a buddy of mine who's a big Bruce Way guy. I've got Road Toad music. I've got a link to Stephen Cox's Ubase.
Oh, you already got that?
YouTube.
Nice. So
wow.
So.
But
Doug is on
I can give you links to specific videos as they come up though, because I have like 300 videos on my channel, so
that would be great if you
guys. Yes. So I'll go through and try to find them as we go. Might be hard for me to find them too.
We also, the PC Strummers also has a YouTube channel, and we have a lot of videos there too.
Oh, I have your Facebook page on there, but I will put the YouTube on there as well.
Cool, and we have Barbara from the CC Strummers on there.
Oh,
I think it says "Woohoo, CC Strummers." So I'm assuming she's from the CC Strummers.
We have two Barbaras that I know directly.
Kurt.
That's
Malkin?
That's Tall Barbara.
Tall Barbara. Okay. That's how you keep him straight. One's taller. Okay. I like
Barbara's probably close to 6 feet, if I'm not mistaken.
Cool. I would probably recognize her then if I see her now.
Very pretty. Very pretty.
All right. Okay. So going down the list here for the beginners who want to get into Ubase, which again, you know, do I have a question on here? Because I think, you know, I didn't even put it specifically in here, but you know, it's kind of like why a Ubase? Why even have a bass with ukulele players? So actually, I'm going to insert that question because I think that's a really good thing to start off. Is well, why even have a bass with ukulele jams? And let's see. I'll start off with Michael. Okay. What's your opinion on that?
Well, to me, any kind of group needs to have a bass. Partially for the tone and partially for the tempo. I try to make sure that the group, when we start to play, I say, please keep with my tempo so that you're all like in place in the pocket. And sometimes for newer players, it can be a little bit difficult because they're so focused on what they're doing that they kind of tune out anything else. But as you get used to listening, that's where it really comes in extremely useful, both for the tone and for the tempo.
I think that is one of the best things, is that to help people keep in time and stay together. The bass is right there. It's just like, it's holding everything together. So Doug, what are your thoughts on that?
You said Doug, right?
Yeah, it's to Doug. I think he's looking for the unmute.
Yeah. I had just started the YouTube feed, and so I could hear you said it, and then you said it again, and I'm just full of being confused. But especially in a larger group, it can get very. And we used to play in the cafe at Swallow Hill, which has a stage, and then it has rooms going off either direction, and boy, you'd get it to where one side was going a little faster, and
that must have been an awesome stereo effect.
It was like sailing on the ocean, and
sort of like doing row your boat.
Exactly. Nobody loves around better than Doug Brown. You know who has two thumbs and loves around? This guy. So,
nice.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't been to Swallow Hill in the basement there, there's an L-shaped room, and right at the corner in between those two sections of the room is the stage. So, you're looking down at the one section and looking at another, and I can imagine that they would get out of sync with each other. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty problematic, but once you get a bass player in there, I tried doing a kick drum. I just brought a kick drum and did that for a while, but I would get off, because I'm busy doing all my other things, and I had one lady go, "Yeah, if you bring that drum back again, I'm gonna leave." I'm like,
jeez.
Trying to help, and then
Callie, the leader of our group. Now that we've been doing Zoom sessions, she actually incorporated a drum track to help keep everybody on.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Nice.
Well, let's jump over to Stephen. What are your thoughts on bass ukulele and ukulele groups? Do you lead any, by the way? Are you
I don't lead any groups, but sometimes I just kind of jam with people. And I think the biggest reason, just to elaborate on everything that everybody's already said, that it does that, it provides contrast. So in a normal ukulele group, you might be listening to other ukulele players, but who do you listen to? Who's the person that's going to ground everybody? Whereas the bass provides that contrast, so you can really clearly hear the root right on the downbeat, usually, because most of the bass players that go are going to be playing a root fifth line or just a root,
unless you're Jaco Pastorius, and then good luck.
Even then, you might still have a root on beat one.
That's true. That's true.
Unless it's Teen Town or something, in which case, no, you're right. He's syncopating everything.
I'm pretty much a 1/5 in walk ups and walk downs player. I'm not too elaborate, but in the pocket.
Oh yeah. No, Stephen was flexing a little on Teen Town, I think.
Yeah, it's probably out of tune. I'm not as good at fretless as he is, but it's fun. It's fun trying.
Yeah, we definitely can talk about some of your favorite bass players. I think I have that in later on in here. What? Oh yeah, there we go.
There might be too many. You may not want me to get started on that.
Yeah, then you're gonna have to think of your top three. Then how's that? Okay, so start thinking of your top three. Okay. Not yet. We'll get to that one. Let us go. I can tell this is going to be a content-rich show. So, what are some of the essential Ubase equipment? And then I'm going to go actually opposite way around the horn. We're going to start off with Stephen. So what do you think some of the essential things if you had to start off?
Michael will have a lot of things on this. Obviously just the bass itself. I think having one that's decent, that some of the cheaper brands, like I go with Kala because some of the cheaper brands will have some inconsistencies with the neck and you might get some fret buzz higher up. You are going to need an amp because, unless you're just playing by yourself, because it's not loud enough to jam with people. even with the metal strings, I tried jamming with a friend strumming guitar, and he complained that he couldn't hear me very well from about 4 feet away when he was strumming. So you're gonna want an amp of some sort. Even a little small practice amp is good.
I got a compliment from my wife that she couldn't hear me 4 feet away. She was really in favor of that.
And that's the even bigger advantage of the polyurethane strings is they're even quieter. So your wife will complain even less if you get those.
and bass amps, do you have any recommendations there?
Well, I like Fender amps right now. I mean, I'm sure Michael's probably got a lot of suggestions that might be better. I don't focus too much on that. And on my channel, I use this TC Electronic amp, but that's just because I got it kind of recently, and it's been pretty good to me.
Really, TC Electronic? Oh, wait a minute, that's new. Because they usually have the other outboard gear, not.
Let's see, you can kind of see it over there.
Oh,
but that's a bigger amp. Most people don't need something that size unless they're playing with like 100 ukulele players or something. They might need something that size.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Cool. All right. Who wants to go next? Doug, you want to chime in, or do you want? I'm going to go to Michael, and then I'll let Doug unmute later on. Michael.
Yeah.
What's on your list?
First of all, I'm a gadget freak, so.
Okay, this could be bad then.
So when I first started playing, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, assume people, the essential that people are on a budget, and what would they need first?
What I've seen out there a lot when people ask this question are the little mini. What's the name of the company?
Roland,
the Roland stuff. They make bass versions of those little amps. Here's where I come from. I always want to be completely portable, wireless. I try to find things that are going to have a battery capability. When I was playing guitar, I had a Crate Limo 50-watt 10-inch combo speaker that had a battery built into it. And I could go anywhere and plop it down and play. And that's been my starting point for anything that I buy. Then when I started playing bass, I used that, and it worked out fine most of the time. And then we got a gig at the Santa Monica one-time only uke festival, Santa Monica High School Uke Festival.
All right, nice.
And we played in their little amphitheater that they have in the back of the school, and that crate just did not make it. It was not happening. Couldn't get out enough in that open environment. So I started looking, and I found the Phil Jones Double 4, which is this tiny little box. It's like the size of a shoebox, but Phil Jones specially makes bass units with specially designed speakers. It's got 2 4-inch speakers, but it is kick butt when it comes to bass sound, and you can add a battery to it.
Yeah, battery. I like that idea.
Yeah.
Now,
so I put the battery on it, and it was great for our rehearsals in a big multi-purpose room with 35 players together. And then we had another outdoor thing, and I thought, okay, this is 70 watts. It's got great bass sound. Went out there, and it didn't carry. It sounded good right near it, but it really didn't carry very far. So I got on I'm on the Talk Bass forum also, and I got on and I asked, what should I do? Where should I go? And I got a recommendation. First of all, they said, you need a big speaker. If you want to be outdoors and you want to get out, you need a big speaker. So I looked and I saw that there were some 15-inch units out there, amps out there. And I looked around, and one guy suggested I go to Carvin because they make a very compact box with a 15-inch speaker. And I looked it up, and I said they were on sale as it happened at the time. It was a week before my birthday. So I bought it, and I also bought a matching external box that goes with it, 250 watts together, and 2 15-inch speakers. And outdoors, man, it'll knock you out. It was a terrific.
So you're getting towards AC/DC level. Well, what about the people who are just going to be? Because I think I'm thinking that the audience here is more going to be not necessarily performing in an outdoor arena, but maybe with ukulele groups. What would you recommend there?
I think Stefan might be able to address it because Fender's bass amps are the recommended one that I've seen around.
Yeah, I recommend it a lot. If you don't mind me chiming in, I have the Rumble series for the Rumble 200 watt for the wedding gigs I play with electric bass, and I've used that with Ubase before, and it's been good. And then as a practice amp and just anything smaller, if you can plug in, then I would suggest that. If you don't want to plug in, I agree with him. The Phil Jones, I've heard great things about, and I haven't played through one, but the Roland Microcube bass.
Microcubes, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It sounds really interesting too. The Roland Microcube, because are those battery powered also?
Yes,
those are battery.
That is fantastic.
And they make a bass version of it too.
Yeah, and is it rechargeable? I heard. I think is that the one that's rechargeable? See that is.
There is a link in the show notes to the Roland Microcube bass CX.
Nice,
cool. And I see some review videos on it. Yeah. So that's pretty cool, but it says 5 watts, so I'm not sure how it would really hold up with how large for a group. Yeah,
that would be interesting. Doug, do you have any experience with a Microcube or that size amp?
I don't in that size. The amp that let's see here. Come on now. The browser has blocked my screen now. Why can I not?
While you're looking, let me just add one little element. I also put together a small battery and inverter, real small, with an 8 watt hour battery that I use for anything that can only be plugged in. And I take it everywhere, and it lasts on my Carvin setup. And I mean, that's a major setup. I can play 6 hours on that battery with it.
And which battery are you using?
I've just bought a small. They call it it's a sealed lead acid. Looks like a motorcycle battery. It's 12 volts. It's an 8 amp hour battery, and I bought a not too expensive 200 watt pure sine wave inverter from Amazon for like $50.
You are a gadget guy.
Then I have a picture of that too. I should
yeah.
But I have it actually back here in my cabinet, and I wired it and I velcroed it so it's all just I can just place it in my little cart and ride away, and it's really great for any kind of plug-in.
Michael, you sound like you're ready for Burning Man. It sounds like really. And
okay, so this is the SVT 810 bass enclosure, and so it's 8 10-inch speakers. When I was working at clubs in the late 90s,
that's everywhere.
Yeah,
I played through a couple of those. Yeah.
Oh, and these guys would bring this into the Bluebird Theater here in Denver, and it was so overpowered for the room. It's like, and the monitor engineer was always just back there like, come on, guys, really? But to really do it, you have to have a spray paint of like a skull on the front of it.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Okay.
There'll be a link to a link to that in the show notes. But
and if you want to see a picture of it, you can watch the YouTube. And by the way, shout out to Barbara. She says that she just got an amp from Denny yesterday, so the first lesson is going to start soon. So, all right.
I sold her one of my bass ukes, actually.
All right.
Once she got it, she hooked up with Denny. This is the battery and inverter that I use.
Is that? Yeah, that's pretty compact.
Oh, wow. Very compact.
And how do you charge it? Do you just plug it in? Does it have a charger?
I had to buy a charger to charge up the battery, but just plug it into the clips on top that are being plugged into the inverter. And it's, wow. I'll tell you, I'm amazed at how well this thing operates and how little and compact and light it is. It's probably 5-6 pounds, maybe.
Yeah. I can see there even has a little fan in there, so that looks like it's pretty heavy duty.
It's and you don't hear the fan at all. It's good. And it even has a USB port on it, as well as 2 AC ports on it.
See, there you go. You'll never have your phone run out of juice if you have one of those. All right. I think we've covered essential bass equipment. I just a disclaimer here. I don't know if I would go with what Michael has, but some good.
I would say the Roland for battery, or the Fender Rumble 30 watt if you're doing a small group,
right?
Or you jam with a couple people, and bigger of the Fender or the Phil Jones or whatever if you're with a bigger group.
Cool.
Some summary for you.
But if you're going to Burning Man, I think Michael has a setup for you. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. Unless Doug I can't remember. Did you go yet, or do you have?
Yeah, I have the SVT cabinet.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not
for beginners.
I'm not the helping in any way. I'm just trying to derail this as much as I can.
Good. All right. Okay. Some tips and tricks for beginners, and maybe even intermediate.
By the way, I don't think anything was mentioned that a bass uke is tuned exactly the same way as any other bass. People have this impression because the word ukulele is attached with that it might be tuned like a ukulele is, but it isn't.
Yes.
Same pitch, same frequency. So if you were to like I can demonstrate, obviously. And can I reach it?
No.
Same pitch.
Like thunder.
Same pitch. So.
Well, actually, that was one of the big challenges of making that possible on a ukulele size instrument is, and we can talk about all the hoops that people have gone through, because all of good things, tension, frequency, all that. Yeah. So that's Michael, tips and tricks for beginners. What would you recommend?
Well, look for bass lessons online. Any bass lesson will work. Doesn't matter who's showing it to you, whether it's a stand-up bass or, fretless and fretted might be a little bit different presentation. But any electric bass presentations, classes, teaching is a good way to start it out. Tips and tricks. Other than that, I think Stephen will probably have more to say about that. I tend to be the hardware oriented. He tends to be the music play oriented,
So this is my specialty, if you want.
There you go.
I do weekly Ubase content on YouTube. So every week I put something out. I copied a link to a beginner playlist that I have. I'm going to share it with you guys. You can share it in the show notes if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I have one lesson on there that I call the ultimate beginner first lesson that kind of just walks you through it. And that's the first one, I think, in that playlist. And so basically I agree with Michael, though, that any bass thing will work. Any bass tutorials that you find will go over to Ubase with one exception, and that's the right hand technique, because there's no place to anchor your thumb. There's no pickup to anchor your thumb. So there are a lot of people that have different variations. And one thing you can do, one tip and trick and the essential things, right, is you could get a thumb rest. I know Michael probably has some things, and he'll probably get to that when he talks about his basses. You can either have actual thumb rest, or you can have things that simulate pickups, which I think is his thing, that you can actually rest your thumb on.
Well, that's interesting. I never thought that was a thing, to have a thumb rest, but I guess so. The big pickups on a full size bass, people use that as an anchor.
Yeah. So one tip I guess I have is when you're playing, I try to keep my hand. Sorry, I don't think I can get it in the video. There we go. So I try to keep my wrist pretty straight when I'm playing. I don't try to have it like a lot of people have it bent over. And if you watch me playing, I'll have some bad technique here and there, but I try to keep it fairly straight. And I do this thing where it's basically a floating thumb sort of technique from electric bass. So if you ever look up the floating thumb technique, basically when I'm playing the E string, there's no real good answer. I just kind of play the E string, and maybe the back of my hand will rest a little bit on the body, but I'm not really anchoring the thumb too much. You could anchor the thumb on the body if you wanted to, but then when I get to any other string, I anchor my thumb on the E string while I'm playing the other one.
Okay.
It works as it mutes the E string as well as you're able to reach the other ones.
Ooh.
If you wanted to, you could even slide it over and mute the other strings as you go, which is that real floating thumb technique. It's like your thumb just slides along and your fingers never have to stretch that way to reach out. It allows you to play faster because you're not changing your technique between strings. So that's a very in-depth kind of
that's a great one.
Very beginner. But that's what I recommend. I know there's another Ubase channel. Was it Uke Wales? Well, she's a ukulele channel. Are you familiar with Uke Wales? She does ukulele.
No.
Too. She has a different approach. For her, she likes putting her thumb up here, and the reason that I go against that is really for playing slow. It probably won't bug you, right? If you're playing root fifth, you can probably get away with it. But that stretch between your thumb and the rest of your fingers will slow down your finger movement, and also if you're playing for a long time, it could theoretically cause a little bit of pain, just kind of in between the thumb and the forefinger, just like right there. So, or maybe other places. But
and would you, and for the beginner, would you recommend what kind of strings would you go with, the lower tension or higher tension strings?
It depends. I think why people are getting into it. If they want it to feel more like an electric bass and they're coming over from electric bass, I would say do the metal round wound strings, which Doug has on his as well, or the flat wound strings because they're less noisy. One of the biggest complaints about Ubase, and probably the reason people say like, why would you even want one, is because of string noise. And so, so to me, the perfect answer, and probably Michael, I think, agrees with this, is the flat wound strings, because they're the best of both worlds. Your fingers don't stick to them. I know we had a string thing coming up, I know, but But yeah, the rubber strings, your fingers, polyurethane. Some people get mad when I call them rubber strings. They feel like rubber bands.
I do.
Yeah. So the polyurethane strings, your fingers kind of stick to them a little bit, and it can cause some notes to come out later than you intend or louder than you intend if you don't do the powder thing that people are saying. And there's another video on that. I'm trying to remember her name, Julia. I can't remember her name, but she's got a bass channel, and she did like ways to have less string noise, and she went into like all this. It's like a scientific approach of first try the powder, then try wetting your fingers before doing it, and then so you can tell there's just a lot of like ridiculousness that goes around that. And so for me, my favorites are the flat wounds. They cost a little bit more, but they're smooth, so it lessens the
string noise thing.
String noise for sure. And
interesting.
So I kind of, in one way, I'd recommend those, but not for people that have wrist issues. So if you have a wrist issue and you're getting into it and you're like, I have carpal tunnel or something, then the polyurethane strings are probably going to be your best friend. So the left hand will be easy to push down.
Okay. So for the left hand, the polyurethane strings are good. And for
low tension,
yeah. And I would think the flat wound, as you said, gives the best of both worlds, where it sounds more like an electric bass, but at the same time, you don't have to worry about the string noise. So that's I'm down with that.
For me, and you can slide on them. I got to say this real quick about the like you can slide all the way through. If you do that on the polyurethane strings, it'll pull the string with it, and the note will
no kidding
where you end up. Yeah,
especially when the conditions are a little on the humid side. That's when they really fall.
Which is, I'm in Georgia, so it's all the time. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't, I should have I didn't even bother to ask. I didn't realize that you're in Georgia. That is, for some reason, I thought you were in California, but nowadays we're all over the world, which is awesome.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask you about the thumb, because on this guy, I end up kind of popping my thumb into the F hole here.
Oh, cool! I've never thought of that. Honestly,
and it doesn't feel so. I borrowed a Ubase before I got this one from a friend of mine who had like a little anchor on there, and it worked out really well. But I think I'm going to. You said it was a floating thumb.
I call it but I didn't come up with it. I call it the floating. People call it the floating thumb. It's kind of like people with 6-string basses use it a heck of a lot because you have to mute while you're playing. And I think on Ubase, it's kind of the same thing. You don't want those extra strings ringing out. You can kind of mute the lower ones with extra fingers on this hand. The thinner strings, the strings 1, 2. One's closest to the floor, not lower pitch.
Yeah.
And then I always do that and confuse people. Yep. And then this hand, if you're using the thumb, it can mute the ones that are more likely to be troublesome ringing out. Because if you have the E string ringing out and you're playing notes on the other strings, it's going to get muddy real fast. So.
Well, and I also wanted to know, have you seen the floating thumb in the 6th House of Shaolin? It's like a great movie from the 70s, and it, floating thumb.
Floating thumb.
Yeah.
Is Doug's nickname Mr. Punster?
We never thought of that, but that would be something. He comes up with the titles for the show a lot of times. Although, so there's a challenge for you guys.
I don't go there. I'm not quick enough.
Okay.
I do some puns here and there. You basically is my favorite. I just end up saying it all the time now. You basically have to do this in my videos, and sometimes I'll type it out on the screen because it's just ridiculous that I say it so much.
There's a guy on TalkBass forum named First Name Bassist.
Oh.
That's awesome.
Great.
All right. Well, we might have something here. I'm writing it down. All right. What should a novice know on Ubase before getting one? Well, okay. Yeah, that's a good one. Did I skip anyone, by the way? Michael, did you already go on this last question?
I think things that were said are pretty much what I would say as well. There's one thing. There are people that play bass with their thumb and have a rest at the lower side of the body, below the strings instead of above the strings as a thumb rest. So that's what I've seen on a Fender electrics, that there's a rest underneath the strings.
I don't think I ever realized that
plays with a thumb. I don't. To me, having the finger playing gives you so much versatility.
Yeah.
But I do want to say something about that. There is a technique. A lot of times the metal strings lose the Ubase sound. That people typically think of the Ubase like it sounds more like a little electric bass or something. But if you want that sound, you can do what people did back in the day and kind of mute near the pickup with the back of your hand and then play with your thumb like that too. When I do that, I kind of rest my fingers on the string. But if you have the polyurethane strings, it might make noise and you might want a thumb rest or a finger rest at that point. So
I've heard of people putting bits of foam under the string to mute them down a little bit.
Like a piece of sponge or something. Yeah. Totally. James Jamerson and all those guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's one of the famous names out there, James Jamerson.
Oh yeah, we're getting to that at some point. You'll ask that question.
Absolutely.
Right. I have one story about that.
Cool.
Famous bass players.
All right. Well, we're gonna come to that, and what the novice knows about should know before getting into it, take out a mortgage on your home. Hopefully not, but
the string noise thing, just know that that's one of the reasons that you get those comments like, why don't you just play a full size bass? It's because most people don't like that annoyance of having to
up and down the neck.
You kind of have to alter your technique a little bit just to avoid string noise. You have to play lighter. You have to keep your fingers dry if you're doing polyurethane strings. Like you were saying, the pahoehoes. Pahoehoe. If you play those, they have less string noise than the average string. Thunder Reds are supposed to as well. I just haven't played on them, so I can't give my opinion. Yeah,
I didn't think they had that much less sticky noise. A little bit less, but not significantly to me.
But the string noise is a big thing.
I'll throw this one out too. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead and finish your thought.
That was the main thought. Just the string noise.
It made me think of something. Give me a second. It was a tip of novice user to completely went out of my head. All right, let's keep going. I'll
All right.
catch up to it somewhere.
For the beginner, there's now a variety of Ubases that you can get. I was going to say pickup, but then people will get confused on what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So
this
there's
is actually the subject I was about to mention. So go ahead.
Yeah, well, nowadays you can even get a solid body that sounds pretty decent. I think it was I saw the ukulele teacher John Atkins playing one of those, and it sounded fantastic. I was like, wow, when did this come up?
For the low price of over $1,000.
Right. That is the thing that I was going, where can I get one? And then I saw the price and go, whoa, wait a minute.
Okay. Now let me throw myself in here. Rondomusic.com in New Hampshire imports Chinese-made acoustic bass ukes and solid body bass ukes, and they run anywhere under $200. They're pretty good for that amount of money. Pretty good. The biggest issue is common to all the bass ukes that have a certain style pickup and bridge setup. I don't know if it's necessary to get into a lot of detail, but to me, they are worth the money, and you might have to do a slight modification to them. That's the pickup that can have some issues that, to me, have a simple correction to make. Some
so
people
talk about the pickups.
So this pickup,
the saddle. There's the pickup. The saddle has slots cut in it to separate the four sections of the saddle, but they're not completely separate. So right beneath them is a tray that holds four individual pickup elements. And if the saddle is not putting equal pressure on all of those elements, the sound is going to be out of balance from string to string.
Okay.
So I've recommended to just slice apart completely the saddles in between the strings.
I made a video based on his recommendation, which people are telling me they're scared of now because I didn't use proper tools, and it looks like I'm going to slice my finger off. And some people have been like, "Don't do it like Steven." So I don't know if we should promote that video, but I followed his instructions with the inappropriate tools, and it totally fixed the problem. So it did. So these are actually four separate pieces now. It's been cut apart on this one, and the volume is even between all of them, and it's something that's annoying to have to do, but not
right.
Not
you would
hard.
think, why don't they just change the manufacturing process and do that?
Because
maybe it's just easier to slot it.
Make one piece of saddle.
I see.
Instead of four that have to be handled to get in there, Somebody said to me
they could connect them with something like a paper clip kind of thing, and then it would.
I suggested just a little tape
string
between each one before you put it back in. But somebody said to me they didn't do a full slice between. They just got it thin enough in what was left in the plastic to allow them each to get the right pressure. So there's alternative ways to do it, but I've done it for 4 or 5 of my basses, and it has worked perfectly.
It works, yeah.
This is getting a little geeky, and I wonder if I'm getting too. But no, I'm into it. So let's go down the rabbit hole a little bit, and then we'll come back up.
Hey, really quick. Did you know there are a lot of people named Steven talking about how to custom fit your saddle for your horse? So there are a bunch of videos out there like that.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pun. We enjoy your input.
Were you looking for mine? I think I called it like volume fix for Ubase or something. So if anybody's searching for it.
I did a post on the Facebook Ubase Freaks group.
And I followed your instructions. I had them pulled up on my phone, and he keeps you bump it up every now and then, so it's usually near the top of the page. So people that join the Ubase Freaks.
Oh, very cool.
I tried to do that.
Yeah.
So
very helpful.
So we're not talking about horses, but we're talking about Ubases.
Unless you want to sit
I like
on
horses.
The geeky question I had was, okay, so most of these basses seem to have the pressure sensitive. I think they're probably piezo pickups. I'm wondering why they chose that over just a normal electric pickup.
Polyurethane strings.
Oh, right. All right.
Yeah, they aren't you can't pick it up with magnets.
Of course,
you have an extra.
But These new wound that are wound around nylon.
Yeah.
People were telling me, oh, you can't use those on magnetic because it's got a nylon core.
No.
Well, there's enough metal on the wound
Yeah.
that they work perfectly on magnetic pickups also.
Right. Yeah.
And
It's
they're
just
low
the metal.
tension.
Okay. Yeah. And you know, they may not have as much strength, but you know, you can have active pickups and things like that. So, okay. But that answered the question. Okay. We can come up out of the rabbit hole. I'm going to skip the pros and cons of a Ubase. We kind of covered that in, you know, full size versus Ubase size. And
My channel does it a lot too. I do it a lot on my channel, just for the record.
Okay. So go to Stephen Cox's channel. Hey, no, we want to do that. So getting a realistic tone out of your bass. So, you know, one of the amazing bass player tones that I've heard was from Milo Fultz, and he was jamming with Kamai Gameao. Shout out to him because Calais Gameao. Yeah, because by the way, his family was hit with one of the storms that came through Hawaii. So check out there. So if you want to help him out, his family out. But anyway, they were jamming together, and I think that was the first time I heard a bass where I go, okay, that's a sweet sounding, you know, very realistic bass sound. So how do you get that tone from that kind of a Ubase, so it doesn't sound too plasticky or too tinny? Let's start off with Stephen.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, Michael might have some good stuff to say.
Well,
Michael,
I think mine's going to be simpler, more direct. I really like the deep bass sound. So on my preamp, on my amp, I lower the mids and highs and I raise the bass so that I get a good solid bass. It also helps cut down on the string noise when you drop down the treble and mids. And that helps a lot there. But we're going to get to the string talk in a bit, so I'll hold off on the rest of what I was going to say.
And that's a really good advice, is just to adjust the EQ on there. So for beginners, you're going to maybe want to look into how to EQ your bass. That's a good point.
Drop the highs, crank the lows if you have separate knobs. I know some of the Ubases have the shadow pickup, and it only has one knob. So you just got to figure out which side's the low side and which side's the high side, basically, and go more toward the low.
And enhance the bottom. Yeah.
Yep.
Most of my preamps have 2 or 3 controls, and even my passive, I just go to my amp and make the adjustments there.
Okay. Doug?
Well, although at the same time, if you're listening to playback or you have people that are saying, oh, well, you sound kind of muddy, you don't want to get too crazy with the cheese whiz on it, because I've heard that too, where it's like, oh, well, I want some thump, and they turn it up enough that it's just like
right. Right. You need an attack on there, so that the attack is from the high end. So sometimes, in spite of the fact that the string noise is also an attack, so unfortunately, it's the double-edged sword, right? So what you got to find enough attack to get through, but not so much that it's like overbearing. And then the other thing I was going to say is I do a lot of solo arrangement stuff. So, I mean, I need the high end, and then it's just a matter of like altering your technique to get as little string noise. But yeah, in a band, sometimes the low isn't enough to just cut through the correct way, and you do need a little bit mids. But the strumming will cover up a lot of the string noise. If you're playing with a ukulele group, you don't really have to worry about string noise as much, and you'll get the sound that you want. You know,
so basically, you're talking about a scooped, like a scoop of ice cream right out the middle. So you cut out the mids and maybe emphasize the bass more, but then also give a little bit of the high end to get that rhythmic sound in there.
Usually it has enough high end, so you don't really want to, like, if it was in the middle, that's probably fine. You may even have to take it a tiny bit back. You just don't want it all the way down, because if it's all the way down, then you lose the attack.
Okay.
And it's one of those things too. One of the things that sometimes I've seen people get into the habit of is not getting out far enough that you really hear the box in the room.
Right.
To really get an idea of the tone and just part of it too is listening for having an idea. And I understand if you're just starting out, it can be really difficult to get an idea of what it is that you're listening to. And as a professional audio guy, I know what I want to hear, but it isn't necessarily what everybody else wants to hear. But trying to get what you want it to sound like is important.
I use a wireless hookup from my bass to my amp so that I can walk out into the floor and really hear what it sounds like.
And I use a long cable for that reason.
Okay, that actually, both of those sound good. So if you're into lots of gadgets, take the micro route, because I love that, being able to hear your sound, right? And if you want to go the conventional route, just get a get a long cable, like a 50-foot cable or something.
Or just be in a room where you don't need that much to do it.
Yeah.
Like I think 25 was enough for me. I think I usually use
25. Good. Okay. Yeah. But just so that you can get out there.
250 feet. That's
nice.
One other quick thing I want to say on this is, have you ever listened to isolated bass tracks on YouTube where people have found the master recording where it's just the bass and of any recording that you like? Usually you're not going to like the tone if you isolate the bass.
Right.
And that's the thing. A lot of people have their go-to tone when they're playing by themselves, and they think it's going to sound great in the ensemble, and the ensemble needs you to cut through more. So you got to add more treble than you'd like. And you might be disgusted sitting there listening to it really close, but in the middle of the room, it might sound like fantastic. So there's a weird thing about audio that's just, you just got to do what you got to do.
It is.
Makes me think of another point about the bass lines. In many cases, the bass is in harmony with what's being played by the other instruments. And that's another layer that's being added.
Yeah, and a good layer, because it complements the tonal range of ukulele. But a good point is that, when you isolate tracks, you'll be surprised that it sounds so different than you would expect. Right, because they're tinny. And that's because the producer, the mixer, is trying to make it fit, and that's a really good with the overall sound of the song. So that's really something important to realize, is that you're part of an ensemble, and so you're trying to complement, and you're not trying to necessarily stand out. And by the way, Barbara, I think she already signed off, but she says she thanks for the wealth of info for the beginners. Awesome. And I'm glad she can join us.
Oh, shoot. Again, I lost my quick thought. I was going to say, boy. All right, let's keep going. I'll probably come up with it in a bit.
And now you'll like this one, Michael, strings and pickups. Okay. So here we are. So kick us off.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Let me just, that one little mention. Many times when I'm practicing by myself, etc., I'll play, it'll sound a certain way. When I get to playing the gig or with the group, I almost always have to adjust my EQ in the course of setting up with the group. So that
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So strings and such. My take is, if you're going to stay with poly strings, I prefer the road-toed Pahoe, which are much smoother. The other side of that is they take a long time to settle in, a long time. And they stretch and stretch and stretch to the point where they wrap around the spool too much.
Oh, no.
And you have to undo them, snip off them, and work to get them strung back on again. That got to be, between that, the Pahoe, even the Aquila Thunder Guts, that got to be a little bit too much for me, having played now for about 6 years with them. And in the humidity, even outside, enough humidity that they would get sticky enough that it bothered me to a point where I started using only, first of all, when I play guitar, I only use flat wounds. I never liked the sound of round wound strings on anything. I always felt that sound was an interference in listening to the playing. So I always used flat wounds. Then as ukes were graduating, people started coming out with round wound, short scale round wounds, and then short scale flat wounds.
Mm-hmm.
And little by little, I am replacing all of my poly strings with these Kala quote flat wound. They make 20.5-inch scale and 23-inch scale, and that's the sizes that I work with.
Oh my gosh, you just answered something. I ended up buying 2 different sizes, and I didn't know they had 2 different sizes. I just bought what the store had and thought they only made one size. And that explains why the wrapping on this one is right by the nut. Sorry, you can't see where the wrapping starts on there. And then on this other one, it was like they were super long, and it didn't have the issue because they were probably intended for that. So the wrapping starts way back here instead.
Yes.
Interesting.
So that's what I've decided to do, to move to all of my stuff to flat wounds. I've been using on my magnetic pickups the Gold Tone MBLS Labella 25-inch scale, and using those on my magnetics. And sometimes I have to use a tailpiece to catch the extra length of those 25-inch on my 23-inch scale basses, or stick them as string throughs and anchor them on the back to accommodate that extra length. But it works out perfectly for all of those. But now with the Gollies, they actually work with magnetic pickups, even though they have a nylon core, which I mentioned before.
Oh, right. Okay, so the other ones, are they steel strings in the middle and then wound too, or they all have
the Gold Tone
have nylon?
Right. Normal flat wound strings from bass guitars are all steel in and out.
Yeah.
Flat on the outside and a core of steel on the inside.
Right.
Golly came up with a flat wound steel on the outside with nylon on the inside, and they work for either kind of pickup, piezo or magnetic.
And it's true with the round wounds that came out before the Golly ones. So just the Kala silver plated. Well, now they're just steel. I think I don't even think
also,
all those have a nylon core, and I keep telling people, which I don't know if this is certain why, but it seems like these tuning pegs aren't really intended to have something with the extra metal core wrapped around it. I think it relieves the tension here, but it just also, I don't know. They just recommend, everybody always asks me, can I use normal bass strings on the bass ukulele? And it's like, I recommend not, because 1, they're not the right gauge for the instrument. They're not the right thickness. And 2, I think that core is going to put pressure somewhere. And I have a feeling the place is going to put the most stress on is here. But I guess it could put some stress other places. But it seems to me like that's
also
probably
the
more.
neck. Yeah.
I'm using them on both acoustic and solid bodies. These solid steel but they're the 25-inch scale Gold Tone Labellas. So maybe there's enough of a difference there, but I don't seem to be having any issues with any of that stuff.
Okay. Good to know.
Here's what I've come to, the conclusion I've come to. When there's been some naysaying about something, I tend to say, you know what? I'm going to try it myself and see what happens. And so far, I've not had a problem. Yeah.
So this is an example of what you just said of trying that. This instrument does not have a truss rod. I do not recommend it for that reason. The strings did, you can tell that the action's really high there.
Yeah.
Super high. But this is useless to me otherwise, because I can't teach on it because it doesn't have fret markers. So so I really just wanted that sound and being able to slide on it. And so I'm just like, worst case scenario, it snaps the neck, and I'll just buy a fretless and put these strings on the fretless. But it was like I think I saw them for 110 on Amazon or something. It was 150 when I bought it, but they're cheaper than they were. So that instrument is really cheap, but it doesn't have the truss rod, which is why I recommend like either Kala or sometimes the Hadean or whatever ones.
They have them. Yeah.
Yeah. And that way, if the neck warps or something, or not if the neck warps, but if the neck has issues, you can do a truss rod adjustment.
Oh, yeah.
You can't.
You can't,
So the strings are honestly just slowly bending the neck like this, and
ouch.
And I can tell by how much it goes out of tune. I have to keep doing it. So I cannot recommend doing that on an instrument without a truss rod.
Right.
But
Good point.
I don't think you have to worry about that with the polyurethane strings, which is why it came with polyurethane strings.
Right. Yeah. So it was not meant for steel string type of tension. Yeah. That's the thing, is that that's probably why they did the nylon core with the metal wound, is just the tension. So pickup wise, they're coming out with both, they have the piezo, which they started off with and now they're coming up with the magnetic pickups, right? I guess, is that only in the solid body ones?
Are they doing that?
I haven't seen, other than handmade stuff, personally made stuff, I haven't seen magnetic pickups on commercial.
Oh, okay.
Commercial bass ukes.
Maybe that's I'm wishful thinking then. I thought the newest ones, maybe they're only piezo. That which is a mystery to me. Is so if you have a solid body bass, Ubase, why wouldn't you put magnetic pickups?
Because they don't put the metal strings on the solid bodies because it has a different bridge design. And Kala, like, this is one of those things where you're saying Kala recommends not doing this, but some people have done it anyway and have said, one person said it messed it up, one person said it didn't, of two people that I've seen on that Ubase Freaks Facebook page. But basically, it has like a floating kind of bridge kind of thing. So it's just got like two poles that hold it up, and then there's a little gap underneath it. So it's a different pickup design for whatever reason. And so because of that, they recommend not putting any of the metal strings on there, although plenty of people have put the round wounds on there. As far as tension goes, I should say this real quick. The polyurethane strings are the lowest tension. The round wound strings are second lowest. And then the flat wounds have to be a little thicker. But I think they're higher. They're just higher tension in general. So that's the one downside to them, is that they're higher tension than even the round wounds. So for people with hand issues, it might not be great.
Just the slightest bit more.
But it's enough.
I find them very comfortable. They're still easy enough to, compared to my solid steel flat wounds. The nylon core ones are very, very flexible for me, at least.
But compared to the polyurethane strings,
well, yeah,
not so much.
Sure.
And the metal round wound strings still have a higher tension, so they still feel more like electric bass strings. But the tension really does go in order of polyurethane, then the steel round wounds, and then the flat wounds. Now,
talking about pickups, these pickups that we've been discussing that need the saddle cut apart and all that, piezo pickup, they have a very limited, in fact, on those kinds of basses, they have no adjustment to them at all.
Right.
On some of the gold tone solid bodies, they have adjustable to a certain degree. I found all metal electric guitar style piezo bridges that I'm little by little converting my solid bodies to those bridges and pickups, because they're fully adjustable and you can get the intonation just right. If you look at the pictures of that Doug has over there are two of them on there right now, two of them that have that bridge replacement.
Let's bring that up.
Yeah. And I got those on, I think it's eBay through Thompson Guitar Supply. They're imported from China. Doug,
so
can
folks
you
will have to watch. So
can you zoom into that yellow one at the bottom of the second column? It looks like a jazz. I have it designed like a jazz. And you see the one right above it. They're both based on exactly the same Hayden long scale solid bodies. The top one has this standard Ubase bridge with that saddle in it. The bottom one, I had that removed and I replaced it with this solid steel, fully adjustable bridge. And little by little, I'm changing to that as well.
Like a bass guitar bridge, basically.
It looks very much like a bass guitar bridge, but it's
the advantage. I can see the advantage you can, because you're saying you can adjust the intonation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It has full up and down adjustment and front and back adjustment.
Which is one of the biggest pet peeves of a lot of people by the way, is that the intonation on short scale instruments can be really bad sometimes. And so like having that ability to adjust them, meaning moving the basically the string length, right? You can move it this way or that way. Can you do that on that bridge? I'm just asking.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So by being able to move it that way or that way per string, you can fix the intonation issues. Whereas on even ukuleles have this issue. So, you can't really fix the intonation that way. You have to do something with the neck or do something random. So that actually is a really cool thing. Michael's got all these cool things going on.
He does. Now, are those all bass ukuleles? Because I see some with pickups.
I call them, certain ones I call bass ukuleles, other ones I call mini bass guitars.
So are they just short scale?
They're conversions from actual electric guitars that I had converted to basses. I took off the 6-string bridge and put on a 4-string bridge, replaced the nuts.
Oh my gosh.
And they became basses. Like the teal one right there in the middle, that Les Paul one, down, down, down.
Yeah,
that was a guitar. So was the
that was a
Mitchell
guitar?
right. Those were all guitars that I had converted into a bass.
What did you do with the headstock? How did you get the headstock?
Stayed the same. Just left off 2 of the.
So you just took off 2 of them.
Yeah, just put the tuners in the existing 4 tuner holes and leave the other 2 unused.
Cool. Nice.
I tried this one time, which do you do this yourself or do you get somebody?
No, I have a guy do. I tried it a couple of times. One time it came out reasonably okay, but the others I screwed up enough. I just said, leave it to the professional and I'll just pay.
Because I tried this. You remember when First Act had a little tiny guitar that had a speaker built into it?
Yes.
I decided it should be a bass. And I think I ended up selling it on Craigslist. So somebody ended up buying this 12 years ago or something. Yeah. But basically, no pun intended, basically. Can't help it. I did the same thing where I just left the tuners on there, though, because I didn't have all the extra parts and everything. So I just strung it to the same 2 and left the middle 2 empty. And it was obviously terrible because I didn't have the right gauge strings to have it be in tune. So it was just like floppy strings. But, I've always liked the short scale thing, and that would have probably been my first closest to a Ubase thing.
Right. I actually tried to convert a couple that had amp and speaker built in. Whose was it? Anyway, I did a pig nose, and it was terrible as an amplifier. Both of them were terrible as amplifiers.
But that was part of their appeal. It was a terrible sound.
In their own context, yes, that was fine. But to try and make it work for a bass with clean sound, it just didn't work.
I ended up doing a whole bunch of kind of luthier experiments, and until I ended up buying this, it's like a Gibson SG solid body uke, and it's really the uke that I've always wanted. And I go back to something my dad said when my brother bought a sailboat, and he's like, well, I'll do this and I'll take this off and I'll put this on and I'll get, and my dad was like, do you want to be a boat builder or do you want to be a sailor? Because
they both
being a boat builder is okay. But if what you want to do is sail, then maybe you should buy the boat you want.
Right.
But,
that's kind of where I'm at with it. I know some people are now making, like, for instance, this is me trying to be a boat builder or whatever, right? Kind of like I'm putting strings on this. Right. On this. I really just want to talk to Kala and see if they'll custom make me something where basically it looks like this, but it has a truss rod. It's made out of much better wood, that kind of thing. Because I basically want a miniature upright bass. Mm-hmm. And then I found somebody, and I don't know the luthier. Michael, you might have seen this on Ubase Freaks.
I think you're talking about David Martinez,
possibly
in Mexico.
I'll describe the instrument, and you can tell me if that's the one. I think the guy that was talking to me that got one made by this guy, that guy's name was Kumar. So if his bass was one of those, then yes. But it had a radius to the bridge so that you could even bow it. Which I have videos on bowing these. Nice. Which bowing these, it's kind of like if you have the rubber strings, you can't. And so I just made a funny video about that, where it's like comparing the upright and the electric, and it gets to the bow test, and I play on the upright, and then it gets to this, and it's like. Like, okay. metal strings you actually can bow, but because there's no radius, you're going to end up bowing 2 at a time. And you can really only bow the G string and the E string. The ones in between are not bowable. So, you can actually do that, but his has the radius. So if he has a small enough bow, or decides to hold the bow way out from the instrument,
right,
he could actually bow all those strings. So I'm thinking I might get one of these custom made. Just
cool. Or if you're like Nigel Tufno, you use another ukulele to bow the other bass ukulele. Anyone know Spinal Tap fans here? No. Okay. All right.
2 guys. Go ahead. God, I'm not gonna.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. You guys. All the young people out there, go and watch Spinal. This is Spinal Tap, and that is classic.
And watch out for the 11 on your amp dial.
That is why. Hey, so after that film came out, they started putting amps up to 11. That is how much influence that film had.
And the poor drummers. but we don't care if drummers spontaneously combust, because most of our groups, I mean, the ukulele groups at least, or ukulele groups, don't usually have.
Right. They nearly kicked Doug out when he brought his bass drum in. So.
Well, and it's my club, so
it's your football, it's your basketball.
Yeah, I'll take this and go home. Well, I tell everybody that, and part of it, I think, is working on the OokTown podcast. I figured out my favorite thing to do is to lead the group. Like I love that more than playing even. And so I always feel like they're doing me a favor by, it's like if you were the director of an orchestra and you have to have all the people come in to play with you. So really, they're all doing you a favor. So I'm super grateful for all the fantastic people at the Denver Ute community, because
it's awesome.
Awesome.
Getting back to the solid body ukuleles, here's what I'm wondering, because I've seen solid body regular ukuleles with pickups. A friend who was an early podcaster with us, and he's passed away recently. He used to, and as E.P. Davis, he got some amazing miniature, ukuleles with pickups. They were just fantastic. You know, they were, what kind of copies were they? I think it was like an ES335 type of body. But anyway, I was wondering, so I'm always assuming, well, they should be able to put the pickups on there, but they don't. And what would you guys say was the reason, or is it just cost?
The strings, the poly strings.
But now that we have the metal wound, why wouldn't they do that?
They might. They might.
They're just fairly new. Yeah, they're the newer. Yeah. I mean, the flat wound one came out a year or 2 years ago now.
Okay. It's that long. Is it that long?
I remember I went to NAMM 2019, and they were releasing them then, and I was so excited about it because I just happened to be there playing with one of my friends. Are you guys familiar? Is ukulele community with Rock Class 101, the lesson site?
I'm not familiar with that.
Anyway, I got to play at the Kanilea booth with them, so that was pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah, and so while I was
there, 3 now.
Yeah. While I was there, I went up and boom, there were those strings, and they also had the nylon. Gali had its own booth, and they had the nylon wound ones, and those are kind of cool. Oh, one thing, back to the string discussion, if you don't mind. Punchiness of strings. So, like, if you want the most classic Ubase sound, you go with the Pohehoes, because those were the original kind of thing. The Thunder Guts are a lot punchier and brighter. So if you like that, those are the way to go as far as those go. And then the metal round wounds, I think, are too bright in my personal opinion, but they're brightest, noisiest, all that stuff. And the flat wounds are kind of mellow. They're somewhere kind of in between. So
if someone wanted to get at least close to the sound of Electric Fender P bass, is that even possible? Is it? Can you EQ it? Can you put it through some processing? What's
The round wound strings with EQ, I think, would get close.
round or because you need that tone for.
If you're doing slap bass, I'm gonna say this too. If you do slap bass, that sounds the best on round wounds, even though they're the noisiest strings, because they're the most like electric bass strings.
Yeah. You want the noise because of that thumpiness. Yeah. Okay.
Some people on my page did compare it to a P bass kind of slap. I'm not sure if I completely agree, but it's the closest.
Close.
Yeah.
Okay. I love the sound of some of the sounds that you can get on these Ubasses, and I swear that one I was talking about I think it was at NAMM with Kale Gamiao and Milo. I was like, wow, that sounds like a regular bass. I wouldn't have known it was a U bass. So it's definitely possible.
There have been videos of live shows where the guy brings out a bass uke and just knocks the audience off its feet playing that thing, and they go nuts. Wow, look at what's going on with that thing.
And that there have been several times I've played at coffee shops where someone will come to me and say, if I didn't know better, I would have thought there was an upright bass up there. That's more upright than electric.
That is one of the things that it does so well. Yeah, is the upright bass.
If you have the polyurethane strings, and particularly the pahoehoes, I think sound the most like an upright when people ask me that. To me, playing an upright, I'm a little bit of a snob about it and say, well, none of them really sound like it. But
sure.
But they have this depth to them that I think is what makes people think like, wow, it almost feels like there's a body there. It's something about the way the piezo pickup picks up the polyurethane.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of and a lot of upright basses use piezo pickups in addition to regular acoustic pickups.
Yeah, I've got one on mine. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the band that I used to play in, we haven't been playing out too much, but it's Bookham Dano, and we had an upright bass player, so we loved that sound. Okay, now we're into the inspiration part where we can talk about who we like to listen to and why. So if you have some bass inspirations.
Inspiration. Well, I mean, I've always liked the bass sound of most every song that I've listened to. Growing up in the mid-'60s, classic rock and roll, all of that stuff, really loved the bass sound on everything. And because I have a natural tendency for tempo, it really resonated with me, the bass sound. But like I say, I didn't start playing bass until 2014. But is this a place for my bass player story?
Sure.
In the when I got into show business in 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, I was a production assistant for a TV show and road manager. It was the Johnny Man Singers, which was like a red, white, blue, back porch majority kind of group. And we would record all the audio tracks for this show at the end of the week in the recording studio, in one of the audio recording studios. In our case, being in Hollywood, it was Pacific Studios, which is like the premier studio.
Is that where the records played?
Next to Capitol Records. It was one of the premier places. And most of the players that came into the studio to play were the top-notch players in the world at the time. They were a good portion of them, if you know the name, were the Wrecking Crew.
Yeah, that's what I meant, the Wrecking Crew. Sorry.
Yeah, Wrecking Crew people. Herb Ellis, Tommy Tedesco, Joe Pass were guitar players. A sit-in from Paul Smith was a piano player, and sitting in for him was Chick Corea. So people like that.
Really? Chick Corea used to come in?
Yes. He just played side whenever he needed to. And
I didn't know that.
Our bass player was look at this. I'm going to have a blank for his name, Ray Brown. Our
Oh,
bass
wow.
player was Ray Brown the entire time we did it for the 3 years. And
Wow.
to sit there and not even know that I'm interested in bass per se, but I would watch him, and such a nice guy too, such a gentleman. And it was amazing. In between takes, in between whatever's, the bunch of them would just start jamming away. The drummer was Frankie Capp, who's well known. These are all primo jazz players with their own
Yeah.
albums, with their own world. Yet they were the sidemen in these recordings for the Johnny Man Singers Red, White, and Blue, TV show.
Yeah, the Wrecking Crew is famous for all that. I mean, Carol Kay, that's another
We never
amazing
did
bass.
see Carol, but I would, because Ray was the man. Every once in a while, we'd have a substitute of Monty Budwig, if you know that name. He was another
I
one.
don't.
Okay.
The Wrecking Crew is just famous for being amazing musicians, and the Beach Boys wouldn't have a hit album if it wasn't for the Wrecking Crew. And there's that famous story where the Beach Boys had to learn their parts after they recorded the album, which is such an interesting story. All right, so Stephen, what are some of your inspirations?
I'm going to try to give a quick Ray Brown story. I didn't actually get to meet Ray Brown, but what's his name? Is it John Clayton? Ended up with his bass because he when he passed, and so John Clayton came and did a. I hope I'm saying it would be bad if I'm saying the wrong name, but I'm pretty sure he came through Emory and did a clinic, and he brought that bass with him. Nice. And so at the end, I got to talk to him at the end of the clinic, and I was just like, "That's so cool!" And he's like, "Yeah, you want to play it?" So I got to play Ray Brown's bass, which was phenomenal. It's a 7/8 bass. It's huge, and it was really hard to play, but it sounded amazing. But
wow.
But that's my Ray Brown story. But obviously, I want to connect it back, but James Jamerson's obviously a big influence, especially if we're talking about like Ubase kind of recreating kind of things. And you were asking about P-Bass. Mm-hmm. Honestly, the Thunder Guts, out of all things, we haven't mentioned those a lot, but the Aquila Thunder Guts, they sound pretty good on Motown stuff. If you're trying to, yeah. So when I cover some Motown stuff on the channel, everybody's always like, "Oh, do it on the rubber strings," and it's or the polyurethane strings. Sorry, Michael's gonna throw something at me if I keep saying that.
It's okay.
But I hear you.
They are. That's all I mean by it. But they sound the most like that because they already have a muted tone to them. So you don't have to put a spongy material underneath it because they're already
sponged. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have too many influences to name, but I'm trying to think of just a couple. Obviously, we talked about Jocko earlier. If I know Teen Town, you know that the Jocko is definitely on the list.
Yeah.
But Ubase specific, Bakiti Kumalo, Paul Simon's bass player.
Oh.
Yeah. So when he did the Graceland album, he's one of the few people, him and Nick West, and there's one or two others that have a signature Ubase. And so it's just kind of cool that Paul Simon's bass player. So I really want to be able to play those fretless lines that he did on that album on a Ubase. But if you ever see a video of him playing the Ubase, he gets a really good tone out of his fretless signature model and out of the ebony fretless. And he slaps on it, and he gets a thump out of the rubber strings. It's kind of a unique sound that's different than when I do it. I think he's slapping in a different spot. I need to just study what he's doing and what his EQ is, because he rolls off the high more than I would and the mids more than I would. But it's so good to hear, and that's probably why he's got a signature model. He makes it sound the best.
I saw him at the LA International Ukulele Festival a couple of years ago, but he was playing a standard bass at that gig, and Milo was at that gig also, by the way, Stuart.
Cool.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, Doug, anything that you want to add there?
I like Sting.
Sting's cool.
Sting has a lot of.
Why not? And certainly, I maybe I should add Paul McCartney.
That's true.
Oh, yeah.
That's true. Actually, hey, Sting, his approach was so unique in terms of fusing jazz reggae and rock together. He's not a I wouldn't say not. Yeah, he's not technically proficient like a Jaco, but just his style and his taste was really outstanding. Yes, I do. I forget because you think of him as the front man for the Police, and you forget. Oh yeah, he's a great bass player too.
Walking on the Moon. Dun, dun, dun,
yeah.
dun,
So
dun, dun, yeah. Dun, dun, dun,
I know. Yeah, just those lines that you just get stuck in your head. Right.
Yeah, that one's a good one. Yeah, he's a really good writer. He knows what works to accompany him and the rest of the band super well too.
Yeah,
so it's a big thing.
And he
say.
has some pretty good jazz chops. One of the underrated jazz songs that they actually did was called "Murder by Numbers," and that was wasn't even included on their Synchronicity album until later on as a bonus track or whatever. But great jazz arrangement, great bass lines and everything. All right, and I think we're way past our time because we've been having such a great time with you guys. So I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for talking to us and our listeners about the Ubase.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
So
I really enjoyed this.
It's a lot of fun.
I want you guys. Let me know what you guys are doing. So let's start off with Steven. What have you been up to? Any things you want to promote?
Things to promote. I mean, I always have. I have some music online. If you go on Spotify or any of the streaming services, it doesn't have to be that one. If you like YouTube better, you can do that. But I have an album out from 2017 called Transitions, and it does not feature the bass ukulele, but it does feature that upright, and it also features one ukulele solo piece on the Kala Ebony tenor over there.
Cool. Transitions.
So, yeah.
Where can we get that?
So mostly just any streaming platform. If you type in my name, Stephen Cox, and then you type in Transitions, the album should come up. And then I have a song that does have Ubase on there that I put under Stephen Cox bass instead for some reason. And that's a duet with the ukulele in that, and it's called Sweet Dreaming. So
nice.
Those are two things. Otherwise, I just promote the channel. I do a new video every Tuesday, a live stream on Thursdays, and it's just an ongoing thing.
Awesome, and we'll have links in the show notes.
The other place that you can go to get a link to the Spotify for Transitions is in the show notes.
Yeah, thank you.
Doug is on it.
Stuart, you have a great second man there with Doug.
Absolutely. Michael, what's going on for you?
Well, really, I just play along with twice a week with the CC Strummers on Zoom, and I keep coming up with different bass. I've tried to restrict myself because I was getting really, really nuts. I was up to 34 of them at a time, but to fit them now in that closet space that I created to store them, it'll only fit 28 of them. So if I want another one, I have to get rid of one.
See, that's a good thing because then you can kind of rotate through, get something new.
Right.
We didn't see that picture yet, did we? Did you share that one?
Oh, hold on.
So there's that.
There
where
it is.
It used to be, all hanging on my wall, and then I put together this rack in my closet. First of all, to make it easier for me to grab with the nerve damage in my neck, it's harder for me to get up and reach up on the wall like that. So I put this rack together, and it's right in front of me, low, and then finished it on both sides of the closet in that next picture. And there they are now. And they're better protected as well.
They're like hanging clothes, except you're hanging ukulele bases.
I saw a hook like that online. I said, wait a minute, I can do that for my bases in my closet.
Nice.
That's when it changed.
Nice.
I can imagine that you can open up a closet instead
Which
of
one am I going to wear today?
Yeah, exactly.
I rotate through them one by one because we meet 2 days a week. Monday afternoons at 3:30 and Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. The CC Strummers.
So how would someone get on the CC Strummers if they want to join?
Let me look for the link.
I bet you Doug's going to get you.
He's
already got
it.
He's already got it. Never mind, Doug's already got it. We'll include a link to the CC Strummers in the show notes.
And let's see. I think what you have to do is actually go to Callie's website, callierose.com. And there's a place there where you could request to become part of the Zoom sessions.
Cool. Awesome. And Doug, you already had the one for the get together for the month for the Denver Uke community?
Well, so we're now meeting the first and the third Saturdays of every month. I have the if you can bring that up, I've got the Callie Rose's website on the. I'm sharing it, looks fantastic.
There it is.
Nice.
And there should be a place along there that you can request to become part of the Zoom sessions.
Yes, indeed, and I will definitely have a link to that in the show notes. We're now doing the first and the third Saturday of every month. The first Saturday always going to be online for forever because we've got people in Australia and England and Germany, and, all over. But we have the color meeting is coming up, and that's going to be awesome. The Pandemic Pluckers in London, they meet every day.
That's amazing.
I still go to about I try and get to 3 or 4 of those a week. Portland Ukulele Wednesdays, fantastic. And then tonight there's a Sunday night group in called ukejams.com is their website, run by my buddy Leonard, and I've actually hosted for him before, and that's a terrific strum along as well. And so I'm keeping busy.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Doug, if you have the record for most membership in ukulele strum-alongs. I'm thinking you might have that.
My friend Jock in Australia, he's the guy that got me into all of these other clubs.
Really?
I don't go to half of the ones that he does. So,
whoa. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I can't believe I didn't say this. The one that I just got out of was the Santa Clarita Ukulele Monopoly, or SCUM, where that my twin brother runs.
All right.
And
okay.
We do punk, ska, and metal ukulele.
Yes.
It is fantastic. And then there is a huge ukulele community in Boston that they have stuff almost every night of the week too.
Wow.
Can't suggest it highly enough. They're on meetup.com, and I'll have some links to all of those in the show notes.
I think that's one of the wonderful things about this. Well, I shouldn't say it. And if anything good has come out of this pandemic, it's that we're more connected in these types of ways. Like you're going to continue on with the virtual ukulele gatherings and strum-alongs, right? Fantastic. You're going to still have in person, but you're going to keep the online going. Awesome. We never had that before.
Oh, and I almost forgot. I just found a club that is in a smaller club in downtown Denver that meets Thursday nights that for Capitol Hill neighborhood in Denver that I've started going to. Fantastic. Like really, really great.
Cool. Awesome. Well, it was so great to have Michael and Stephen on the show. First time guests. Oh, didn't say that. Yes, first time guests. Michael Cohan and Stephen Cox. So great to have you talk about Ubase along with my co-host Doug Brown. And as we do on every show at the end, I'll count to 3 and we'll all say aloha. Are we ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Aloha.
Ah.
Fantastic. Oh, so much fun.